Growing up as a child of Chinese immigrant parents in Germany, I always felt a part of, but also apart from. And maybe that is the reason that I later started to create spaces where we can come together in community. Because part of the answer on how we might explore modern loneliness, to me, is also in understanding how we might come closer together again to ourselves and each other. Interestingly, the word loneliness, in the English language at least, only appeared in the 1800s. And before that, there was only the word oneliness, the idea that all is one is all. Last year, the World Health Organization recognized loneliness as a global public health crisis, with about a quarter of adults in the world feeling fairly lonely, very lonely on a regular basis, and those below 30 being the most affected. And the impact of loneliness spans from mental health issues such as anxiety and depression, but also to physical health risks such as increased risk for cardiovascular diseases and dementia, and it can even impact the very span of our lives. And in often trying to quick fix some of these issues with symptom-numbing pharmaceuticals, we neglect to address the underlying issue that is a lack of genuine human connection. And on a societal level, we can see loneliness play out in the decreasing trust that we have, decreasing trust to institutions and governments and political parties, organizations, but also the less and less trust that we have in each other. In fact, there's neuroscientific research that suggests that the root cause of loneliness isn't a general aversion against social interactions, but lies in the biases in our thinking. In other words, it is not part of our human nature to be antisocial, but it is becoming more and more part of our modern human nature to exclude those who are not like us, who do not think like us, who do not look like us, who might have made different life choices than we have. And so we retreat more and more in our little islands where we only want to be close with those who are more similar than different from us. So how did we end up here? Let's look at 3 key drivers that contributed to this current moment of loneliness in this world, starting with our living environments. Most of us and the majority of the world in the future will live in cities. And cities are much more designed these days for cars and convenience and commerce rather than for community. There's a rise in single households. We have less and less public space that is dedicated for us to just meet each other, to encounter each other randomly. The idea of third places. And of course, technology is a second key driver. Anna Lemke, who's a Stanford professor for psychiatry, says that social media has essentially drugified our human connection. The fact that we have developed a compulsive, addictive behavior to our phones as a gateway to that connection that we're all so craving for, but that we're never going to get by swiping and liking and clicking more. And now with the rise of AI and the accessibility of AI in the form of chatbots and AI companions, and now even as a wearable necklace, the real question is, will we still be able to distinguish between what this artificial intimacy and connection feels like versus real human intimacy and connection? And the third key driver is work and the idea of careerism, right? Fulfilling your life's purpose in what you do professionally. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking for meaning in your work, but I am concerned with the cycle of busyness that we've all subscribed to, right? That goes a little bit like this. The more time that I spend at work, and most of us do spend most of their waking hours working, the more productive I will be. And then I will have access to more social and financial capital. And that will give me, hopefully, more freedom to choose whatever I want to do, right, with that capital. And then people will tell me, hey, you made it, right? You're up there. And that will then fill me up with self-worth and meaning. So we go back and we keep being busy and doing things, rather than finding this self-worth and meaning from a different place. And that has led us not only to mental health issues at the workplace and phenomena like quiet quitting, but also people feeling more lonely at work. And this is not only because we're working more remotely these days. So if we only look at these three key drivers, the living environments in cities and urban design, the impact of technology, specifically social media and AI, and then also the idea of careerism, we can see that we've created a world that is so much more prioritizing the idea of separation over connection and individualism over community and relationships, and ultimately one that glorifies the idea of independence rather than interdependence. So yes, this current moment is a moment of crisis, of separation and loneliness, but it also might offer us a piece of wisdom that we've really been trying hard to ignore and neglect. Because underneath the experience of loneliness is always a need for longing. So what is it that we are individually and collectively are longing for? Perhaps it is a return to ourselves. Rather than trying so hard to avoid loneliness out of a fear of not wanting to be or end up alone, can we befriend our aloneness? Can we become our own best company first, especially when it gets tough? When we doubt ourselves, when we get anxious, when things get overwhelming, can we stay with us? Can we stay with our feelings and ask ourselves, what is it that I need? What is my body trying to tell me? Rather than going on my phone, distracting, numbing by going shopping, or drowning myself into work. And I'm not talking about giving all of your money into the self-care industry, right, and buying a lot of skincare products and going on overpriced retreats. Connection must not be consumed. It can be much easier than that. And the beautiful thing about this is that it is unique to each one of you. Right? To me, it might be going on a long walk by myself, no headphones, no podcasts, just walking, going for a swim, going to dance, so I'm not so much in my head. Right? For others, it might be meditating or cooking themselves a really nice meal, or going to one of the gatherings of the Offline Club, which is kind of a modern third place that started in the Netherlands a couple months ago, where people consciously disconnect from their phones in order to reconnect with themselves. Because when we return to ourselves, we can also return to each other and to those capacities that we all hold, but that we've also neglected, such as giving each other the gift of your undivided attention. Truly listening to what wants to be heard but isn't being said. To feel with somebody, to show real compassion, to practice apology in order to see how forgiveness really can come into relationships. How to repair and heal relationships and resolve conflict, because these are the capacities that we need in order to deepen and sustain relationships and not make 100 new ones on a superficial level that we do not need. Initiatives like the Human Library go even a step further in challenging our biases and judgments and assumptions. The Human Library started in the 2000s in Denmark, and it basically brings people together to share their stories, right? Each one of you is a human book with stories that are worth telling and worth sharing. Because when we share our stories with each other, we can see that exactly those differences that we perceive as what holds us apart, that are actually revealing how much we have in common. And when we return to each other, we can also return to the world and all of life around us. Because we've been buying into this narrative that we are separate from it. And we've created these capitalist systems that are based on infinite self-reinforcement, that is entirely unnatural from the cycles of this earth and from our own beings and from our own bodies. So if we realize that we are not separate from nature, but we're a part of it, we can start to embrace that interdependence rather than clinging on to and protecting that independence. Maybe that is by starting to rewilding and going into the forest and picking some mushrooms, or going birding tomorrow. Maybe it is joining an urban gardening community. Maybe it is getting in touch with practices like restorative circles in order to resolve conflict in community. Maybe it is living in an intergenerational co-housing community, or practicing democracy in a citizen assembly, or simply looking out for each other in the neighborhoods that you're in and being of service to each other again. There's so many ways that we can be in relation with each other. So why does all of this matter? Because in the study, the largest study that was ever done on human flourishing is the Harvard study of adult development that's been going on for 80 years across 4 generations. They found that the one single ingredient to leading longer, happier, and healthier lives is the quality of our relationships. So now imagine a world where we do not center our individual pursuits and our egos and our careers, but our capacity to care, to be more in relationship with ourselves, each other, and the world and everything around us. Perhaps this is part of the wisdom that this current moment of loneliness can offer to us. Perhaps then we can return from loneliness to oneliness, to realize that we're not alone, but that we're all one. Thank you very much.